Hey, what's up guys, my name is Charlie. Today we're going to be doing some more requested reaction videos, and this video is requested by Wario Land Gold Pyramid. Oh boy, yeah, you've been around on my channel for a very long time, since the birth of my channel. I definitely remember your name and your profile picture. It definitely sticks out. I remember all my homies on YouTube that have been around since the birth of my channel. So thank you for being a long time supporter on my channel, and thanks for those who have been, subscribing, liking, commenting, sharing all my videos, and doing everything they can to support my channel. So yeah, thank you so much, my home bros. Oh boy, I never thought I'd say home bros. That's the first time I've ever used that word, but still. Yeah, but I just want to emphasize just how much I am grateful for your support. Like I said, I remember your name and profile picture. You've been around since the birth of my channel. Your names do stick out, and I definitely remember your names and profile pictures. So don't worry, I remember all my homies. Homies. Oh god, what am I turning into? Using this foul language of the 2020. Hell, I don't even think that's language today. I mean, that was like language back in 2007 or something like that. I don't think it's hip now in 2020. I'm becoming old and turning into a fossil now. I'm going into my 30s. But yeah, this is a Nintendo character with 0 Google results. Oh boy, I guess we have something in common. 0 Google results in searching my YouTube channel. So we've got something in common. Great. That's all seriousness. Let's check out the video, shall we? Let's go. That was a
I've got a
cheap
story
shot,
for
I'm
you, and I
sorry.
think it's a pretty interesting one. Today, I am going to be telling
I like
you
taking the piss out of
the
myself. It's
story
so
of
fun.
the most obscure Nintendo character of all
It's
time.
so
A
fun
character
taking the
so
piss out of myself.
unknown, so obscure that searching this character's name on Google to this day.
Yeah,
I
try
expect to
search
continue
me on
this video,
Google.
but
I
as
won't
of
pop
today,
up.
Googling this character results in literally 0 results. Today, I'm going to tell you everything I
My
know about
name's
this
Charlie.
character, including the extremely specific set of circumstances that led me to discover them. So once upon a time, way back in 2014, that's 5 years ago now,
Okay.
Nintendo unleashed a game onto the world called Rusty's Real Deal Baseball. And this game,
Rusty's?
which was, I thought, really fun, arcadey collection of baseball themed mini games,
I'm thinking of
was notable
Rustlers.
for one major
That's a
reason.
food
It was
company.
Nintendo's first ever attempt at a free-to-play title. This was before Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, before Fire Emblem Heroes, before any of that stuff existed. This was a 3DS game that was Nintendo's first ever dipping of their toes into the free-to-play genre. And of course, being Nintendo, they did not just release a normal, typical free-to-play game.
Of
They made
course.
something very weird. They made something that I think is one of the most interesting and charming 3DS titles of
Let
all
me
time,
guess.
and it's something that no one else on Earth could have ever made. And while most free-to-play games are full of the, typical crappy in-game ads,
Yeah,
or lives-based systems
microtransactions,
and multiple
loot
currencies,
boxes,
cooldown timers you have to wait
and
through,
cooldown timers.
Rusty's
Oh,
Real
I
Deal
fucking
Baseball
hate
kind
all
of threw
this
all
shit.
those tropes out
That's
the
what
window
gaming has become.
and
One
did
big
something
marketing
totally different.
fucking
So in the place
corporation.
of all of the typical free-to-play crap,
You're not even
they
playing
have
video
this
games
entirely
anymore.
original mechanic,
playing
something I've never
corporate
seen
games.
before or really since. The way it worked was in Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, there's an in-game shop and an in-game shopkeeper named Rusty, and you're actually able to haggle with this in-game shopkeeper to reduce the real-world monetary price of the minigames he
Wow.
has for sale. Now initially, each of those minigames that he sells are $4 each, but through a combination of negotiation and bribing him with donuts and other various items, you can get each
Donuts.
game's price down to drastically less than what he's initially asking. Now
That's
I actually
pretty
like
cool.
the minigames in Rusty's Real Deal Baseball a lot. They're solid, highly polished, arcadey games with like lots of separate challenges and just phenomenal sound design and just like a ton of Nintendo charm. They kind of evoke Wii Sports for me in a way. If you enjoy that type of arcadey semi-sports stuff, I would really recommend you check this out if you're a 3DS owner.
course.
But the haggling aspect of Rusty's Real Deal Baseball is clearly where the heart and soul of this game lies. Rusty, the titular Rusty Slugger, whose name is in the title, is a hilariously tragic character. He's a broken man with a failing business, a collapsing marriage, and 10 kids to feed. All
Damn.
things that Rusty will never hesitate to remind you of during your negotiations with him.
It's so
I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that the main weapon Rusty wields against you when you're negotiating on prices with him is guilt. It's something to behold, and it's actually something I discussed in greater depth when I first covered this game 5 years ago on Rev3 Games. But there's one aspect of this game that I've never really seen anyone discuss before. In all the glowing press coverage of this game's unique monetization method, no one ever really talked about one aspect of it. And I'll explain what I mean. See, A while back, my apartment suffered
Oh.
a serious fire, and I lost all of my game consoles and all of my handhelds in the process. I got a whole
Damn.
video touring that burnt out space.
Sorry to
over
hear
here.
that.
And over
Damn.
time, I've gradually rebuilt my collection of hardware, with one of my last purchases being a Nintendo 2DS XL. But I didn't actually get around to re-downloading my game
Hope you
library
got
until around
house
last month sometime.
insurance
And
that
when looking
covers your
through all the
games.
different games and going through
Or
that
game insurance, if that's
honestly very
possible.
fun present unwrapping process that Nintendo has you do when installing a 3DS title, I stumbled onto Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, which was a game I had some really fond memories of. And it got me wondering, how will the re-download process work for these unconventionally purchased minigames? I mean, in theory, it's a free game with DLC that you've purchased, but I honestly have no idea how Nintendo structured the back end of it. Were each of the different possible game prices separate eShop items? Would I have to negotiate the exact same way to re-download? I had no idea how it was going to work, but I was fascinated by seeing how Nintendo solved this very weird problem they'd created. So I re-downloaded and reinstalled Rusty's Real Deal Baseball,
Okay.
got through the negotiation process, just kind of hammered through it as quickly as possible, and discovered this. Basically, when you reinstall the game, because there's no cloud saves on 3DS, you are
Yeah.
starting from a brand new save file, which means that all of the tutorial stuff, all of the negotiation stuff that you do with Rusty, all that is still there, and you still have to go through it. However, the end result is basically the same. When every time you get to the end of a negotiation, no matter what price you've negotiated him on, you go to the eShop where instead of charging you real money, the game just lets you download that mini game again for free. Now this put me
Wow.
in an interesting position, because now I knew that no matter what I said or did in the negotiation, I could just re-download the game for free. So it put me in this unique position to investigate something I'd always kind of wondered in the back of my mind. I'd always wondered, what happens if you don't negotiate with Rusty? Like, what if you just pay for the games out of pocket, his exact asking price, full price, $4 a pop, no talking him down?
Yeah, I want to know.
I was curious, like, was there any unique dialogue acknowledging that you did that? And I was suddenly in the position to find out, so that's exactly what I did. And what I discovered was this. It turns out Rusty's Real Deal Baseball does not actually want you to pay full price for any of these mini games. It actually takes great pains to avoid letting you pay full price. And,
Yeah,
and
that's
I'll
good.
illustrate what I
That's-
mean with a few examples. See, maybe you've heard of this phenomenon called dark patterns, which is basically this method by which nefarious user interface designers go out of their way to try to drive you towards a specific option, usually a pricier option, with the intent to separate you from more of your money. A really good example that I found in person was last year I went to a Dave & Buster's to play Dance Dance Revolution, and I wanted to put like $20 on my Dave & Buster's card. And so I went up to one of the
Okay.
machines, and every step of the way, just page after page after page of these distracting pop-ups encouraging me to add, quote, more value by paying an extra $5, supercharge my
come on.
purchase for $3 extra. I still don't know what that means, by the way. I still don't know what supercharging my purchase is, but it was just this exhausting, kind of frankly evil aspect of modern interface design.
Yeah,
the cool thing
it's all about
and
money
the interesting
these
thing about
days.
Rusty's Real Deal Baseball that I noticed on this
Corporate greed.
playthrough is that it exhibits what might be the world's first example of what I'm choosing to call light patterns. Basically, a user interface design that begs you to spend less money at every turn. It's essentially just the opposite of a dark pattern. And that's the term that I'm coming up with to describe it. Like, every single time you enter a negotiation with Rusty, one of his kids will pop up and remind you every time that you can haggle his price down. As a matter of fact, if you attempt to purchase a minigame at any price that is even slightly higher than the predetermined one of Rusty's kids will chime in and tell you that you could get a lower price. And interestingly, even the progression of the story, and there is, by the way, a story in this game, the progression of it is
Colours and
inexorably
that's what
tied
stories.
to you haggling successfully with Rusty. So as you negotiate with Rusty, he'll casually reference problems in his life that he needs help solving. For example, his severe nose hair length issues, or his
I can't
inability to
smell
cook a
anything.
decent meal for his kids. And
I
by
love
playing
the
the
animation.
mini
This
games
is pretty
themselves,
cool.
you actually unlock
Story.
items that will help him with these problems, like a pair of nose hair trimmers or coupons for a remedial cooking class,
Nose
which
hair
then you can
trimmer.
offer to Rusty to help solve his real life problems in exchange for him giving you a major discount on the game. And because those are tied to the story, the game really encourages you to hand those items over to Rusty. And for that reason, it's actually extremely challenging to buy Rusty's games at their full price.
That's good. At
Paying
least they're
full
not
price
trying
for
to
one of
rip you
Rusty's
off.
games is something you legitimately have to go way out of your way to do.
Hmm.
I came to realize on this playthrough that the whole experience of Rusty's Real Deal Baseball is not meant to have you haggle with Rusty, really. It's meant to give you the feeling of having haggled for something. Giving you that feeling of like success and accomplishment of having negotiated
Buying
with
a
this dog
game.
and having kind of pulled
An
one over
extra
on him,
part of the
while
game that you
minimizing the
really
actual
don't wanna
real
play.
world financial consequences to the player as much as possible. Going through this process one more time made me realize that in all likelihood, the percentage of Rusty's Real Deal Baseball players who actually paid the full $4 for each minigame was likely a very low percentage of players, which made me even more eager to find out what happens when you do pay full price. Now here's what I discovered. If you do, God forbid, attempt to pay the full $4 a minigame, Rusty's Real Deal Baseball will throw up countless warnings and interruptions, and will even repeatedly place your cursor on the options to try to force you to back down and renegotiate. Rusty's kids pop up telling you to hang on a second, and if you ignore all that, if you hit continue and you hit the buy button again, Rusty will ask you one last time if you're okay with it. If you move down and hit buy for $4, the final prompt to buy the game at full price, Rusty basically loses his mind that he's actually selling a game for full price, and there's like a fun little reaction from him where he just can't believe that you're doing this. From there, the confetti pops off and Rusty guides you to the eShop to purchase the game as normal. But it's what happens after that that's the interesting part to me. Now remember, for every story beat in Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, there's an unlockable story item that you're supposed to hand to Rusty to improve his life and progress the plot forward. But by paying full price for these games, that means that you have never given Rusty the items you need to progress the story, so they're all just sitting on the bottom touchscreen in your inventory unused, and Rusty never receives them since you never bribed Rusty with them in the first place. So that raises the question, how is the story still going to be able to progress?
That's a good question.
The answer to that question is a name. It is a 3-word name that, as best I can tell, has not ever been typed anywhere on the internet, has not been spoken into a microphone for a YouTube video. That name is Pappy Van Poodle.
What?
God, it feels good to say that out loud. I don't think anyone outside of Nintendo headquarters has ever said the name Pappy Van Poodle
I've
out
never
loud.
heard of
So
that. That's weird.
normally after you buy a minigame from Rusty, you get this little cutscene showing how your gift improved his life. So like with the nose clippers, you see him trim his nose and he can breathe freely again and whatever, his life's better, right? But since in this playthrough you never gave him the gift, Nintendo's solution was actually to introduce an entire character to fill that role. That character is Pappy Van Poodle, who's an old, overweight dog with a cane, who Nintendo describes as a, quote, neighbor, businessman, and mentor to Rusty for nearly 20 human years. It turns out there are actually 6 entirely separate cutscenes featuring Pappy, all of them completely exclusive to the microscopic percentage of players who never negotiated with Rusty and just ponied up full price for his games. And while they're brief, these little moments provide a surprising amount of backstory for Pappy and Rusty's relationship. In one of the cutscenes, Pappy describes how he was cooking boiled parsnips for his daughter, which she hated so much she gave him a coupon for a remedial cooking class, but he's too proud to use that coupon, so he gives it to Rusty. In another, he tells Rusty that he's been, quote, like a son to him over the years, and then hands him a bouquet of flowers as a symbol of their friendship.
Symbol
Rusty
for friendship.
Promptly re-gifts
as long as he
his
didn't
wife.
give him Nintendo 64 as
One
the
of
symbol
Rusty's
of their
children
friendship.
asleep in an alley and gives him back to
that.
Rusty, which is an event that, as best I can tell, has no parallel in the normal version of the story. But the craziest part of this to me is that no one else on Earth seems to know that Pappy Van Poodle exists. There is not a shred of evidence for this character's existence anywhere online. A Google search, like I said, 0 results. He's never mentioned on Twitter a single time. There's no trace on him on any of the Nintendo wikis. It's like a creepypasta almost. It's like this character only exists in my mind or something, and I can't, if I didn't have the proof right in front of me, I would not believe he existed. It's hard to overstate how rare it is to find a first-party Nintendo game, especially a modern first-party Nintendo game that was released in North America and Japan, that has a hidden character that no one has ever seen before.
Yeah,
that
no
one's ever
one
documented
remembers.
And in a game with only 3 distinct
quite-
characters, unless you count Rusty's 10 kids as different characters, which you shouldn't, they all have the same dialogue, discovering the presence of a secret and hitherto undocumented 4th character feels like a very special and kind of insane moment, and one that I think is worth putting in video form, just so there's some evidence of Pappy Van Poodle on the internet finally. Now at this point in the process, I realized I would not be doing my due diligence if I didn't uncover every single piece of Pappy Van Poodle lore before sitting down to make this video, but with literally no info about him anywhere on the internet, I kind of had to turn to some pretty weird places. So in a moment of just complete unhinged obsession, I actually took the 3DS ROM file for Rusty's Real Deal Baseball and used some software called Kiriimu to search through the game's files for every single mention of Pappy Van Poodle. And what I found was actually pretty interesting. See, it turns out, beyond those alternate version story cutscenes where Pappy gives Rusty gifts in your stead, there are actually 3 additional mentions
Oh.
of Pappy Van Poodle in Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, all of them contained in the optional epilogue content, which means an even smaller percentage of players saw this stuff. See, after you've beaten Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, which is to say after you've gone through all of the key story events and obtained all of the games that are tied to those events,
What's with the sad
visiting
music?
Rusty will actually result
The
in
sad music.
this sort of new post-game dialogue, mostly consisting of him updating you on his life and his new career as a team manager for his kids baseball team, the Rusty Sluggers. Now, I could just scroll through all of the relevant Pappy dialogue in the software I used to dig it up, but that felt a little anticlimactic to me, so I continued to play through Rusty's Real Deal Baseball and
Kinda
managed
is
to
sad
encounter these
because
bonus
it's
lines of
forgotten
dialogue
character.
organically on my 3DS. And mostly this dialogue serves to reinforce the friendship that we've already learned about between Rusty and Pappy, especially Pappy's unconditional
And I feel
support
really
of
sorry
Rusty
for
and his
Rusty.
kids. In one
I'd
moment,
buy the game
Rusty
at full
tells us how
price
Pappy has basically
because
taken
I'd
up the
feel
mantle as the
sympathy.
unofficial team mascot for the Sluggers. He even tells us about an instance
Then he
where
really needs
Pappy
those
cheers for the
nose
Sluggers so
clippers,
hard
so
that
I'll
he throws out his back and injures
get a
himself by
discount.
cheering, which I think is adorable. Now, these post-game conversations with Rusty serve as a nice end cap to this weird little game, but they also kind of got me thinking about how weird this dialogue must seem to players who have never encountered Pappy Van Poodle, which is, again, almost all of them. I mean, think about how this endgame dialogue would look to players who didn't see any of the cutscenes I showed you before. To players who negotiated with Rusty, which I'll remind you is almost all of them, seeing the name Pappy Van Poodle pop up must seem like a total non sequitur. I mean, it's a reference to a character that, if you'll forgive the baseball metaphor, comes totally out of left field.
Pappy
Remember,
Van
most
Poodle.
players
Oh,
of
please
Rusty's
stop
Real Deal
zooming
Baseball
in and out, in and
have
out, in
no
and out.
background on
Jesus,
Pappy
easy.
and Rusty's mentor-mentee relationship. Hell, they've never even seen Pappy's face. The only way you
Yeah,
ever
it's
see
nice.
Pappy's
So like
face
a
is by
Mario
holding back in
Sunflower
those
in the
negotiations, not giving Rusty the obvious key item he needs, and then paying for the game the old-fashioned way. At the end of this experience, I just kind of walked away wondering why exactly this character exists. I wonder, like, was Pappy Van Poodle created simply as a convenient story
An
contrivance to help
alternative
progress the plot for
method?
players who just failed to use the story items? Or was this obscure bonus character added to the game as sort of a small reward for those players who put a little extra money in and pony up that extra cash? I don't think we'll ever know the answer for sure.
I have no
Nintendo is
idea.
a complete brick wall when it comes to this stuff. But either way,
It's pretty
it seemed
cool.
important to me to take this
pretty cool.
opportunity to talk about Pappy Van Poodle, get him his first ever Google search results, and just document him for the world. Because I don't want to live in a
Okay.
world where a modern first-party Nintendo game, especially one as good as Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, goes imperfectly documented. That is not the internet I signed up for. That is not the YouTube I want to live on. So thank you for indulging me in this very, very deep dive into this character that no one has ever heard of. Please spread the word about Pappy Van Poodle.
Pretty
Tell
cool.
all your friends about Pappy Van Poodle.
Oh, don't hold the
I
scissors
don't
like
want
that
to
the
live
sharp
in
way.
a world where Pappy Van Poodle is
Hold 'em
lost
by the
to
end, not
history.
the sharp.
I refuse to accept it. I think we have an opportunity to make a huge difference here. Preserve Pappy Van Poodle's
Not in
legacy
your
for
paw
future
like that, anyway.
generations. It's up to us. Hop on those Nintendo wikis. If there's not an article about Pappy Van Poodle on the Nintendo wiki by the end of this week, I will have considered this whole project a failure. So, yeah. Pappy Van Poodle, baby. Weird video.
Oh yeah, that was weird. But yeah, the scissors. You gotta be careful with the scissors. You can hold it any way you want, as long as you're not around with people with the short, it's just sharp end. And if you do hold them in your hand, you gotta be very careful, because sometimes even if you hold scissors, the sharp bit in your hand, sometimes they can cut your hand. I've done that many times. And even if you hold them by the ends, pretty much you're fucked with the scissors. You're gonna hold the scissors in any way possible. You're gonna get hurt. Maybe that's just me, but every time I hold fucking scissors, I end up stabbing people, or end up stabbing myself, or end up killing someone. I'm just joking. I don't end up hurting people with fucking scissors. Yeah, that was a Nintendo character with 0 Google results. That was quite fascinating. Never heard of the game before, never played it, but I kind of feel sad for the character, because he's got like 10 kids, he's broke, and he's trying to work his ass off every single day. I feel sympathy for this poor sod, and I feel like I just need to throw a couple of extra bucks at him. That's what they should do. Just make a microtransactions game, where you got this market guy selling you digital goods, and he's got to feed his starving family, and you got you gotta spend real money, to feed his family. And it's a great corporate greed game. Every time his poor family is starving, you gotta give him $5 to live on every single day. You know, that's what they're gonna do. Fuck, that's probably what they're gonna do one day. They're gonna create this sympathetic, really sad, sort of puppy-eyed bunch of characters, games, and all that. And you're gonna have to start forking out money every single day. You're gonna have to fork out that money. Whew, the money. Your wallet is gonna be breached. Yeah. Why not? Corporate greed. But the games looked alright at the for what I mean. You were paying like it was alright. Yeah, I didn't know that character existed. Didn't know this game existed, and I kind of feel sorry for the characters in this. I really do. I feel sympathetic. I just want to play the game and just give the poor bastard some money, just for the sake of feeling sorry for him. So they could make a great profit from this sort of game, this idea, the mechanics of this, getting people's sympathy to pay real money for a digital game character because his family is digitally starving, and you know, you can play on the kid's sympathy for that. But yeah, that it's not a good idea. That's just a marketing good idea, you know, just to make as much money as possible. I hope they don't do that, honest to God. That would be terrible for kids. There's enough gambling fucking mechanics in, you know, kids' video games today. You know, fucking loot boxes and slot machines and shit like that. Enough's enough. We got to put a foot down and say, look, this shit does not belong in video games. If you're going to start doing it, then you got to start doing it in 18 games, you know. You remember when the good old days when, you know, people would freak out that a kid would buy like an 18-year-old restricted game or something like that. You remember the age restrictions? I know they still apply today, but you know, buying age restricted content like video games and stuff like that. Uh, I mean, Christ, that was you know, a pivotal point. So I don't understand why there's like microtransactions and where you can spend real money, and the games are like for 12-year-olds and 10-year-olds, and they don't know what they're doing, and some of them do. It's just a mess. I'm just disappointed with the gaming industry this day. I don't know, I'm rambling on, but I am really disappointed with this sort of 2020 era we're living in. I think video gaming is slowly dying. Because, you know, it's all about the money, corporate greed over, you know, good quality video games. Now, there are good quality video games, thankfully. Thank God there are good games out there, but it just feels like, you know, over time, such as EA, Electronic Arts, yeah, over time, they're just slapping microtransactions on everything, and it's just sucking the life force out of video gaming. You know, you used to buy a game and you used to play it. You didn't have to pay, you know, pay an extra $40 to unlock, you know, an additional part of the game. You know, it's ridiculous. It truly is. You know, you're breaking down the video game, you're selling it piece by piece. It just sucks. Now, they did that with expansion packs, but that was different because you get a lot for your money back in the day. But now, you know, when you buy that, you're buying like custom skins and shit like that. So it's all disappointing and changed. But that's enough with my rambling. I'm sorry, but I did have to go on about the terrible sort of way we're heading towards now. But yeah, if you like this video, make sure to give a like, comment down below, and make sure to subscribe to my channel if you enjoy my content. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.